This episode of Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. Martini Coffee Roasters is not a martini-flavored coffee. In fact, it is a family-owned and operated company run by the Martini family. And while I'm sure they enjoy a good cocktail, they are all about that high-quality, smooth, flavorful coffee. Unlike many other roasters, Martini Coffee Roasters roast manually using a traditional method of roasting, most relying on sight and sound to ensure the best results, okay? This is quality, people. This is artisanal. This is handmade. This is what you're wanting. And not only that, but they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. So please support small businesses and check out Martini Coffee Roasters at martinicoffee.com. Once again, check out Martini Coffee Roasters at martinicoffee.com.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, listen, we got a big one today.
What a big time episode, baby. Happy to have you with us.
Huge episode today. We are interviewing none other than the Filipino heartthrob, Matteo Guidicelli.
That's right.
And I know people are excited about it, so I'm going to get right to all the opening stuff. Please, of course, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. On our Facebook, we have another group called Citizens of the Milky Way. It's like a little forum where we interact with our listeners and stuff. Feel free to join that. Everyone's welcome to join. Of course, we have a Patreon as well. If once a week is not good enough for you, baby, if you need more, just go to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast and let me read to you right now the names of our Patreon members at our top tier.
Please, please.
Of course, the Dream, James Watkins, the Finnish Face, Via Alungfist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the oh-so-suave Sean Richardson, the British Bone Breaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Archduke of Attitude, Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, and the Nightmare of New Zealand, Noeline Vivilli. If you want more, you just go to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast.
That's right.
All right, now I've gotten through the opening stuff. Today is a huge episode.
We're so excited. We've been wanting to do this episode for so long, and we have been supported and uplifted by our fans over in the Philippines.
Absolutely.
And our Filipino fans in America and elsewhere.
Anywhere, right.
So we're so excited to finally do an episode based on Filipino culture.
That's
and
right.
The Filipino world.
That's right. Our listeners in the Philippines, and they've been so great to us. We wanted to give them something special when we did our first Philippines topic.
That's right.
And that's why I reached out to an old friend. I did a play with him here in Chicago many years ago, back in 2008.
Right.
Matteo Guidicelli, one of the nicest. I'm telling you right now, you always wonder, in case our listeners in the Philippines wonder, you always wonder if they're as nice in real life
Right.
as they seem, as their persona is. And I'm telling you, I'm not just saying this to flatter Matteo, but I'm being honest, because today, and when I knew him back in 2008, the sweetest, most humble, friendly person.
Totally.
And he still is to this day. When we got on that call with him, it was like the Matteo I knew from 2008. He he hasn't aged. He looks incredible.
Totally. I mean,
he looks absolutely incredible.
That's the real mystery we
he's
should be talking
gorgeous,
about.
absolutely. Yeah, and but he was so kind to take this time aside and chat with us. His wife Sarah even popped in for a second and said hello. We got to meet his dogs.
Oh my gosh.
What a great interview.
Yeah, and I mean, he is such a nice guy. But when we were doing this interview, you guys, I was sweating.
Yeah.
So I was just so nervous because it's such a big deal. There was a big time difference, of course, too.
Oh, that's right.
So we were doing this interview late at night for us.
Right.
And so, we were kind of thinking about it all day, and I was like, I'm
Right.
so excited. This is going to be great. finally, about midnight rolls around our time and we start the interview, and I am just sweating.
I know.
I was nervous, but I didn't need to be nervous. He was so easy to talk to and welcoming, but you guys, it was just my adrenaline was pumping.
So how this is going to work, so his interview will be the last half of the episode. This first half will be us diving into our specific topic, which is why we reached out to it. What are we talking about today, Maureen?
Today we are talking about the Aswang.
Oh.
Yes.
The Aswang. And let me tell you something. There's going to be a lot of words we probably mispronounce.
Yeah.
We are so sorry. Obviously, it's not out of disrespect. It's just, we don't know how to say certain things. Matteo actually helped us with some words. You'll hear that in the interview. He actually helped us pronounce a few things correctly. But obviously, anything we mispronounce, it's, we humbly apologize. It's not,
of course.
But also, I wanted to give a few shout outs because this episode was requested by so many people.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just to name a couple Instagram users. One, Janine Nacional, and also Christian Cosa were two of the people that requested this subject. And I just want to give out another shout out. A Facebook user named Maui Reyes. He sent us some sources to look at for the Aswang, but we had already about to record and everything, so we didn't really have time. I just want to say thank you. This is obviously, we'll probably be able to do an Aswang part 2 in the future. And there's also so many other scary things in Philippines folklore outside of Aswang. We'll be able to tackle all that, and we will use those in the future.
Absolutely.
So I think I've gone on long enough. Maureen, what are our sources today?
Wow. We used some great sources this week for our episode. One is a documentary called The Aswang Phenomenon that is made by the Aswang Project. And this is a incredible full-length documentary that focuses on the Aswang and the history of it in the Philippines. And this documentary is for free on YouTube. Highly recommend you check it out. Another video that we found was helpful was U.S. soldiers use vampires to terrify enemies. That is from the Infographics show. Then, of course, another YouTube series that we turn to often. It's the Monstrum YouTube series by Dr. Emily Zarka. And this was her episode about, specifically, we'll get into this, it's called the Manananggal, which is kind of a subset of the Aswang, which we'll get into.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, just Matteo himself, and he'll talk some more about the Aswang.
Yes, and some personal scary stories, stuff. That's really good stuff. As we know, just to start it off, Aswang is sort of an umbrella term. There's actually many different, like you said, the Manananggal is just one of these many different categories and types of Aswang.
Yes. For those who are familiar with yokai of Japanese culture, it's a little bit like that, except yokai can be benevolent or just kind of neutral, whereas Aswang, they are all evil or negative entities.
Right.
So what's so cool about the Aswang is what I've learned about it is kind of like what we were saying. It is such a broad term. It can cover so much ground. But like we said, it's always a negative or evil thing, but there are a few main subgroups of Aswang. And those are the blood-sucking vampires.
Okay.
The man-eating were-dog.
Met a few of those.
Oh, come on. The evil-eyed witch.
Ooh.
The corpse-eating ghoul.
Yikes.
And the self-segmenting viscera sucker.
Ooh. Nasty.
So these all are pretty nasty. Pretty nasty. And kind of more broadly than that, they're often known as a demon, a ghoul, or a witch. And it is thought that Aswang have gone back for generations and generations and generations, the idea of Aswang and the belief in Aswang. However, we don't have any written documentation of it until 1582, which is still a long-ass time ago, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But that is around when the Spanish colonizers were coming in. That's when they started taking their own records.
Right.
And either there weren't written down histories of Aswang or many other aspects of Filipino culture, or they were written down and the Spanish colonizers destroyed them.
So we know that the notion of Aswang was there way before the Spanish ever arrived. It's just because of, like you said, we suddenly get more of a wealth of knowledge of it once they get there.
Exactly.
Right.
And also, it's thought that Aswang, and just the amount people were thinking of Aswang, really amped up after the Spanish colonizers arrived as well. That happened for a few reasons that we'll get into later, but some of it's a way to control people by using fear.
Yes.
But before we get into all of that, let's just talk about some of these suckers, quite literally. So as we said, there's many different variations.
Right.
But being evil or negative isn't the only thing that ties these different types of Aswang together. Something that kind of brings them together as a group or kind of classifies them is their way that they will prey upon humans.
Right.
Oftentimes, for some Aswang, it seems like pregnant women are kind of like the creme de la creme.
Right. They'll kill other people, but that's sort of like the, that's your
McFlurry, baby.
That's your steak, baby. That's
steak.
That's what you're looking for.
Right. But that's not the only thing they would go after. So something that kind of brings them all together is this feeding upon human flesh of any kind.
Right.
Also that most Aswang, they are most powerful at night. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is oftentimes that during the day, they can seem just like a normal person.
Right.
Or a human. But at night is when they can transform into this other thing. That's another thing that comes up again is this idea of transformation.
Right.
Whether it's from day to night and they don't really have control over it like a werewolf or a vampire of more of like a Western culture. They kind of have a similar idea too. But also that they are able to purposefully transform into maybe an animal or sometimes even an object or
sometimes even people, right?
Right.
Almost like a doppelganger in a way.
A doppelganger or a mimic.
Yeah.
Yeah, where either they can make themselves look like another person or sound like another person, or like we said, an animal. A lot of times people feel like if they see a big black dog or a big black pig that doesn't really seem to fit the location that they're in, a lot of people will think that that is in a swamp.
Okay.
And a lot of people really do believe this. According to this documentary that we watched, this main documentary, the Aswang Phenomenon, that was made, I believe, in 2008. So this data isn't completely recent.
Right.
But they said that about 80% of people in the Philippines believe in Aswang.
Right.
So it's not really the same kind of thing in America as like the boogeyman, where it's something that it's kind of a scary story, and maybe kids believe it because of scary stories and things like that they really attach themselves to it, but adults don't really believe in it, blah blah blah. That is not really the case in the Philippines, and it's not just the Aswang. There's other different entities or cryptids or any sort of entity in the supernatural realm. People in the Philippines are more open to that stuff. And that, I think, is just a really, really cool part of Filipino culture. This acceptance that there are parts of this world that we don't understand.
Exactly.
And that not everything falls into a
neat little box.
A neat little box or that can be proven by the scientific method.
Exactly.
At this juncture. So yeah, it's just something that people in the Philippines have been hearing their whole lives, so it just feels very real.
Absolutely.
Another thing that is common that kind of comes up again and again is like this long tongue. This long like tongue that can kind of go and pierce through skin or flesh to be able to suck organs or blood for the Aswang to feed off of.
Right, most famously the manananggal.
Exactly. That's perfect because I wanted to use this tongue sucker to transition into the talk specifically about the manananggal.
Oh, you old tongue sucker.
Ooh, baby, you know I love to suck a tongue. We all love to suck a tongue from time to time. But do you love to suck with your tongue? That's the question. And I think for most people it's a no, simply because we can't. However, the manananggal, she can. So the Manananggal, at least in the Western culture, in America, I would say, is the most well-known Aswang.
Yeah.
It seems like she is kind of the bigger one or one of the bigger ones in the Philippines as well.
Right.
I could be wrong on that because there are so many great resources for this subject, of course, but there's 10 times more of it in Tagalog.
Oh, yeah. We will, like we said, this episode will just kind of be scratching the surface of Aswang. This is a subject we will touch back on in the future and do more. We'll probably do an episode of just Aswang stories of like personal encounters and stuff like that. Yeah.
Because Tagalog is I really love to hear people speak in Tagalog. I think it's beautiful, but gosh darn it if I don't know a single word.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's hard. But it is my understanding that the Manananggal is one of the biggest, most popular ones.
Yeah.
If popular, lack of a better word.
Right, popular in terms of notoriety.
Yes, exactly.
You don't want to meet a Manananggal.
Yeah. So the idea of a Manananggal, first of all, I just like saying that.
It feels good to Manananggal.
It feels very good to say. The Manananggal during the day appears to be just a normal human woman. Not even a normal human woman, a beautiful human woman. And she seems completely human and can even be married. But at night, her arms turn into these leathery, bat-like wings, and she segments herself from her waist, so her legs fall down onto the ground. So she's flying around with her body waist up.
Right, entrails hanging out.
Entrails hanging out, her intestines and guts. And she flies around at night, hunting, looking to eat. And what she often does, she will look through people's windows as they're sleeping, and she will slip her long, tubular, mosquito-like tongue into the bedroom and either enter the body through the ears, the nose, the mouth, and even the abdomen, like maybe either just through the abdomen or through the belly button.
Right.
And sucks out the liver, the heart.
Like it's a fucking milkshake.
Exactly. This really is like a McFlurry. I stand like by what I said before.
Yeah.
It's even
we are the McFlurry.
It's even got that spoon with the little, with the hollow center.
Yep.
And that is how she feeds. And as the night comes to an end, the Manananggal will return to her legs and reattach herself and begin to live another day. But all Aswang, but specifically Manananggal, sometimes are said to have bloodshot eyes because they have been awake all night hunting.
Right.
Now, when they are out hunting, as I said, they will keep their lower half, their legs somewhere. They often hide them in banana groves.
Oh, really?
The thought of that is maybe the trunks of these banana grove tree bushes. I don't really know how it works.
Right.
They look like legs.
Oh, so it kind of blend. It's like it's blending in. If it's at night, you know, if you're not specifically. I see. Okay.
It could work.
Very clever.
Because if the Manananggal cannot reattach herself before the next day, she will die.
It's very almost reminiscent of the vampire.
Yes.
Obviously, different reasons. You know, the Manananggal isn't, sunlight doesn't hurt it.
Right. It's not the fact that it's the sun. Right.
But you still got the sort of Cinderella effect where she's got to be home by midnight. She's got to get back to those legs before sunrise.
Exactly. And the thought is, if you see these legs, this lower half, if you sprinkle salt or spices or garlic over the legs, the Manananggal then cannot reattach. So that is one way to kill a Manananggal.
What's nice is it sounds like almost anything in your pantry will ward off a Manananggal. Now, we know like with vampires, it's garlic, wolfsbane, things like that. And those work with a Aswang as well, but like there's a lot more, what is it, like vinegar, like also pretty much
just
everything
like a bunch of things that you probably would
a little
just
thyme,
have.
a little rosemary.
It's a way to ward off these things.
Right. Oh, and of course, holy water, religious iconography, that too, on top of these things.
And that is another interesting thing, kind of the marrying of the pre-Spanish Filipino culture coming together with the Catholic Church and the Catholic thought process about things like this. When the Catholics came to the Philippines, they kind of brought the idea of a demon to them. They had these negative entities, of course, but it wasn't thought of as the way that, many people think of a demon now being like a specifically coming from hell rather than
Right.
it just existing or being transformed from a human into an Aswang,
Right.
something like that.
And this was kind of one of the insidious things you'll see when different lands became Christianized. Oftentimes, they would take the already existing
Yes.
beliefs. Well, one, they would try to squash them out.
Right.
But whatever they couldn't, they would adopt.
Right.
We saw it with the Celts
Yes,
when
yeah.
when the British Isles were Christianized. Anything they couldn't put a stop to
Yeah.
was sort of co-opted and Christianized and sort of used against the population.
Totally. It's funny that you mentioned the Celts because I was reminded of them a couple times doing my research about this because I learned that in Filipino culture before the Spanish came in was much more equal in terms of gender. Like family lines were recorded and were carried on through the paternal line and the
Right.
maternal line. Women had more of a strong role in society as priestesses, as shamans,
Right.
as midwives, as these really highly important and respected positions. Also, there really wasn't a importance really put on premarital sex or
Right.
not having premarital sex. So overall, I don't know all of the details, obviously. I would love to do more research on Filipino history, so I don't know everything clearly. But it does seem like it was a much more equal society in terms of gender. And that is what reminded me a little bit of the Celts, too, because they had a similar situation where women were in more important roles, even in terms of like military and things like that, until the Romans came and changed things up there. So when the Spanish colonists came to the Philippines, one way that they kind of tried to bring women down so that women weren't as powerful and they didn't have as much say in the society was to make people think that they were Aswang, that they were manananggal, that they were witches. For example, there were these women on the island of Panay. This was back, I believe, in the 1500s, maybe the 1600s. A lot of women fought back against the Spanish, and they would fight back at night. I believe they were called Babaylan, which is like a freedom fighter. I don't think it's just women that were doing this, but a lot of women were active in this, and they were leaders in this. And so the Spanish attached fear onto them, saying like, oh, they're only coming out at night. So that's one thing that kind of was connecting them to Aswang. And another idea is that a manananggal, that when she splits her body, she's cutting off her lower half, her sexual organs. And that kind of separates, it takes away the women's sexual power, saying that they're really only from halfway up. And
Interesting. Okay.
And also the idea that a manananggal would come in and suck a baby or a fetus out from a mother's womb. They're basically just bastardizing and completely saying the opposite of what they were doing as midwives. How they were actually helping to bring, children into the earth. They use aspects of them that have no real negative connotation to it. And then they just switch it into being a negative thing.
Exactly.
Like these priestesses and these shaman, they were really powerful and they were important. They could see prophecies through visions in nature, or being able to interpret things that they were seeing in nature, or they were able to interpret dreams. And they were able to use supplies that they were able to find to heal people, to help people, to do all of these things. And they the Spanish Christians kind of came in and brought the idea of witchcraft, which really wasn't a thing. It wasn't really thought of there. So it's turning what these healers are doing and turning it into quote unquote witchcraft and scary and bad.
Right.
But this, unfortunately, is not the only time something like this has happened. An interesting thing, too, about manananggal that I didn't mention before is the connection with this food item, this delicacy, I guess you could call it, called balut. I don't think it's just eaten in the Philippines. I think it's throughout Southeast Asia, I believe.
Right.
But the idea is you're eating a fertilized egg, a chicken or a duck.
Chicken or a duck egg. Right.
Yeah. And it hasn't fully formed yet in there, but there is an embryo, and sometimes you can see like the baby chick kind of starting to form in there. And it's interesting because some people think that eating these either can keep you from becoming a manananggal or can turn you into a manananggal.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like the level of maybe the fertilization in the egg. I could be wrong here.
Right. Oh, because there was like a story we heard about holding the eggs under your arms. If you were to hold it, you could
create a manananggal in
like
that way.
Yeah, if you were to stand with these specific eggs, these embryos under your arms. Yeah, that was something. I can't remember the specifics.
Yeah, it's like, and then you bury it or something, or maybe that was a different one.
I can't, but
our Filipino listeners,
stuff.
please let us know. Feel free to correct us here. Email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com or reach out on social media. Let us know. What's interesting about the balut is, like I said, some people say it can keep you from becoming a manananggal or it can make you turn into a manananggal. What's funny about it is it's eaten with spices, vinegar, salt, garlic, these things that you are supposed to put on the lower half of a manananggal so it can't reattach itself.
Right.
Or these are things that ward away manananggal or aswang in general. So maybe that's kind of the idea about it, is that if you're eating this thing, this balut with these spices, that is protecting you.
Interesting.
Because it's like you are becoming, or you're acting like a manananggal because you're eating the unborn.
Right.
Like a
Interesting.
manananggal does.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, but it comes up too because a way that you can become a manananggal is if another manananggal, a belief is that a black chick is living within a manananggal.
That's right, like a black baby chick.
Yes.
This was interesting because sometimes you can just be victim to a aswang, you can be killed by one, or you can be transformed.
Yes.
Into one.
Right, exactly. So yeah, it's not the same exact thing as like in the Western idea of a vampire, where it's like if you get bit by a vampire, you will turn into one, or like a zombie. You know, it's not like that exactly, where if you were to survive an aswang attack, that doesn't necessarily mean you would become one.
Exactly.
But I have heard, though, that sometimes that the manananggal, to create another manananggal, that human being needs to be a willing participant. But I've also heard that it doesn't need to be a willing participant. I'm not exactly sure, but the idea is that they can transfer this live chick to the other person, this human that's going to become a manananggal, basically by just like mama birding it.
Right.
And putting mouth to mouth, and just, I guess the chick just pops over to the other person. The idea too is that if someone becomes a manananggal, if they catch it fast enough, you can tie someone upside down and like beat them with sticks until they throw up the baby chick. That's a way to to solve this.
You're screwed either way.
Yeah, it's like, I guess, would I rather be hung upside down and beat with a stick until I vomit up a baby chick?
Right.
Or would I rather just be a manananggal? I don't really know what the answer is.
I mean, if I had that chick in me and I wanted it out,
that's true. Then
beat the hell out of me,
you'll kind of do whatever it takes. However,
but if like I'm being wrongfully accused,
then you're like, listen, I know for a fact there's not a black living chick inside of me.
Exactly.
Then that sucks. So the manananggal, even though that's the one that I was able to find the most info on,
right,
as we said, is not by any means the only aswang. As we said, there are different kind of sections or subgroups: blood-sucking vampire, man-eating were-dog, evil-eyed witch, corpse-eating ghoul, and then the self-segmenting viscera sucker.
Oh.
But let's talk a little bit about the top one, baby. The blood-sucking vampire.
That's right.
So the blood-sucking vampire, it is similar. It's not completely different than kind of the Western idea of a vampire.
Right.
One thing that's different, though, is that it's more, I think it's thought that they don't have sharp fangs. They kind of have more of that long tongue that we were talking about.
Exactly.
That pierces the neck and then kind of sucks the blood that way. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying this a lot because, history has a lot going on. But during the 40s and 50s, I'm sure our Filipino listeners know this, but just to get everyone up to speed, during the 40s and 50s, there was some political turmoil going on in the Philippines, coming from years back with the Spanish being there. Americans helped out to defeat the Spanish, but then the Americans wouldn't really leave.
Right.
Japan came in, World War II, and then they're gone. But America now is still kind of in the Philippines, but there is a Filipino government, but then there's also some like rebel communist groups.
Right. And obviously, you guys know, we're obviously just kind of glossing over very complex history and stuff. So forgive us. Obviously, it's not as simple as we just laid it out. We're just kind of to catch us up to speed for this sake of the episode. We're just kind of glazing over that.
Exactly. So there was this guerrilla communist group, and they were gaining some ground. You're not going to believe this, but the United States government kind of took issue to that during the Cold War.
Say what?
Yeah, you're not going to... I know that's a shock. So the CIA decided to do some psychological operations, psyops, if you will, if you've heard.
Psyops.
Psyops come up a lot with conspiracy theory talk.
Yeah, baby.
But they are real.
They're real. And it's not just the U.S. I mean, all governments do their own version of psyops.
So this, what we're telling you here, what I'm about to tell you, is true. This actually did happen. This isn't a conspiracy theory.
Right.
So the idea of psyops is, or psychological operations, basically to use either propaganda or changing the general public's opinion to win a battle, win war, to get power, etc., etc. For example, in Nazi Germany, the Nazis were very, very superstitious, and a lot of Nazis were kind of tied to the occult. So the United States started sending out these really negative astrological, like zodiac sign things in the newspapers and things like that.
Clever. I'd not heard of that.
Yeah, so that was just a small thing that they were doing to kind of build unrest and uneasiness with the people, because a lot of people in Nazi Germany were into that kind of thing. Now, in the 50s in the Philippines, unfortunately, they took a much more drastic and violent turn. Lieutenant Colonel Edward Lansdale, he headed this operation. And what was his idea and what ended up happening was they kidnapped a lone soldier from this guerrilla group. They hung him upside down, and they took a combat knife and they stabbed him in the neck. He bled out that way. It's so barbaric. It's a terrible thing to do.
Horrible.
So once the soldier had been drained of his blood, they dumped the corpse on the roadside so that terror would spread among them, because they believed that this was an Aswang, a vampiric Aswang.
Oh, wow.
That was doing these things. And it really actually did cause a lot of fear and unrest with the soldiers.
Right.
That, among lots of other things, actually did work, and they were brought down in 1954. I just wanted to mention that because it's just so wild that it's like, it completely makes sense that these soldiers would think that that's what was happening. I mean, what else would even,
exactly. And it's right. And it's sad and dark on different levels.
Yes.
Obviously that this was done, this atrocity, this horrible thing.
Yes.
But two, that they took these long-standing beliefs and concepts and sort of bastardized them and turned them on.
Right.
But yeah, this is something militaries have done through the ages. I mean, since literally ancient history, we see how outside armies and militaries will sort of use the folklore of the area to sort of gain an upper hand.
It's hard too, because it's like, who is anyone to say that these things don't exist? You know what I mean? It's like, we don't know, maybe not all of these things that people are saying they're seeing. We're not saying every single sighting is true. Right. But it's so easy to be like, oh, how could these soldiers really think he was a vampire? But it's like, no. Okay, it's a man that's drained of blood entirely with only a puncture wound to his neck. I mean, what else are you going to think?
I believe in Aswang.
Yeah, I believe in this stuff.
I believe in it. Now, do I believe that also it can be exploited like that? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Obviously. And it's like this with any category. If we're talking about UFOs, ghost stories, are there hoaxes? Hell yeah, there's hoaxes.
Oh my God, yeah.
But it doesn't mean everything's a hoax.
Right. Another explanation about some aspects of Aswang that I find to be very fascinating is this kind of idea that it's attributed to a medical condition. Now, let me explain. I don't think there's a medical condition that'll let you separate your vagine from your upper half.
Right.
I don't believe that. What I'm saying is, on the island of Panay, which is that same island I was talking about before, where a bunch of those women back in the 1500s were revolting.
Right.
Panay, and specifically the province of Capiz, I believe is how you say it, are known to be the home of the Aswang. And that's interesting thinking of, because of those women freedom fighters were there. That makes sense that they would attribute so much Aswang activity because of that, but also because there is a group of people from this area that have a genetic disorder. It's a type of Parkinson's or dystonia. It's called XDP. And it actually used to be called dystonia of Panay.
Okay.
It's either a type of Parkinson's or it's either very similar to Parkinson's. I'm not exactly sure, but it essentially causes repetitive involuntary muscle contractions.
Right.
That cause like twisting and contorting, and it kind of looks like the person is transforming.
Right.
Like as if you were if you imagined what like a werewolf would look like as it was kind of like twisting and turning.
Well, it looks, it looks painful. Like it's you can just tell it's like almost every muscle in their body is contracting.
And especially people coming in over the years, whether it's the Spanish or the Dutch or the Americans or whatever that are coming into this area many years ago when they didn't know what this was either.
Right.
They didn't understand what was going on. So
Right.
they might just write down, like, we saw something very unexplainable. We don't know
Right.
what's going on.
Because this condition, if I'm not mistaken, it's very rare, right?
It's very rare. And once again, this was back in 2008.
Right. This data is old, just so.
But I believe they said that only about 500 people in the world have this.
Wow.
But about 90% of that 500 live on Panay.
Wow. Just
It's one of those things that it happens just people living on an island, and when things get passed genetically,
Right.
it's just bound to happen. And it works, I believe, in a similar way to color blindness or muscular dystrophy, if you're familiar with those, where a person can be a carrier of it without actually having it. It's very possible for a carrier to have children that do not have this thing.
Right.
It really just depends on what genes each parent have and what is passed on. So it most commonly is found in men because of the way that it's passed down through genetics. So yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting comparison to it. And once again, that doesn't mean that I think that explains everything and that there's no such thing as a swang and it's only this condition called XDP. I don't think that, but I think that is super interesting, and it makes sense maybe why Panay is known, that island specifically, is kind of attached with a swang. And something that was said in this documentary, and I don't remember the exact quote, but basically it was saying that if you only pay attention to superstition and lore, then you are ignorant. But if you only pay attention to science and what can be proven, then you're arrogant.
Yeah.
And I think that finding that middle ground is really where it's all at. I think that's the sweet spot.
Absolutely. Anyone who says they have all the answers is probably the last place you want to look for answers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't know. And I feel like most people, when they start looking into things like this, they realize, we can't know everything. So that's good. So yeah, the Aswang has such a vibrant, cool, amazing history. And this is really just an overview of it. I can't wait to dive deeper into it in later episodes and for you guys to hear us talk about it a little more here in a minute with Matteo.
That's right. And before we jump to this interview, once again, just want to say to our listeners in the Philippines, your support has been wonderful. Obviously, all of our listeners all around the world.
Yes.
But, we just want to thank you all so much for your support. We plan to come to a live show, whether it's in Manila or whatnot, once everyone can travel again and it's safe to, we will come to a live show. All right, without any further ado, please enjoy this Creep Street podcast interview with Matteo Guidicelli. All right, citizens of the Milky Way, we have a very, very special guest with us today. I would say maybe one of the brightest stars in Philippines entertainment.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. This is an honor. We are so lucky. Oh my gosh, we just watched one of his movies, Ghost Bride, today. Of all days, it was amazing. We loved it.
Matteo, thank you so much for being on the Creep Street podcast.
What's up, brother? And hi to your beautiful wife. How you guys doing?
Thank you.
We're doing great. We're so glad that you could make time to do the show. We've been very fortunate. We've gotten a lot of listeners in the Philippines, and a subject they've requested a lot was the Aswang.
Aswang.
Aswang,
brother.
You'll have to forgive us. I'm sure we'll mispronounce a few things,
No
but that's
problem.
We're so glad.
We gotta get this right first. Say
That's right.
Swang.
Swang.
Aswang.
Aswang.
No, not aswang. Aswang.
A
No,
swamp.
Swang. Aswang.
No, just aswang.
Aswang.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, you got it there. Just there,
Aswang.
just like a Filipino, right there.
There we go.
Aswang.
Very good.
Nice,
Very
man.
good. Well, the first thing we kind of realized when we started our research is that that's actually a kind of a broad umbrella name, is that there's actually many different types and categories of aswang. And we've kind of realized that depending on where you might have grown up in the Philippines, you might have a different idea or concept of what they are. When did you first hear about them when you were young? How did that start for you?
All right, I really want to ask you guys, why are you guys even doing this? And I mean, why are you talking about, are you guys super interested in like scary stuff? Like,
yes.
How? Really?
When we
You
met.
like horror movies and all these things?
Yeah, and we also like, the horrors of I mean, we don't like the horrors of real life, but we're sort of fascinated by the macabre and the unexplained. We've always kind of believed that what we fear is really more about who we are as people. And no matter where you live, you might have a different name for it, but we kind of have very common monsters in all of our folklore. They might go by different names or whatnot, but there's kind of a shared common ground in what we fear. And I think that's something we found very interesting and kind of beautiful in such a scary subject.
That's true. Aswang and all these scary things. I really believe why we fear things is because we don't know. Like, fear is the unknown, right? So,
totally. That's what we totally agree.
Yeah, so fear is the unknown. So if you go to a dark room and you don't know what's inside the room, you fear going inside. You're afraid of going to that room, right? I live in the capital of the Philippines called Manila, all right, right now, today. But I grew up in Cebu. Cebu is like a small province, an hour by plane outside of Manila. I guess it's more provincial there. So like the aswang, all these scary things are more. We grew up with them. You know what I'm saying? We always grew up with like nannies, helpers at home, etc. Right? When our parents would be at work or whatever, things like that, our nannies would take care of us, and they'd always want us to behave. Matteo, don't go there, stay here, because I was a crazy kid. I mean, like all kids, right? They just run around and break things, right? So their one weapon to control us was to always say, Matteo, there's a monster there, there's a white lady here, there's a aswang there, all these things. That was always in our minds, right? We won't enter a dark room, would sleep when we're told to sleep, etc., all these things. So that was always programmed in our mind as a Filipino. And I think every Filipino, we have all these like old people stories, like not just about aswang, but for example, like after working out, you're not allowed to shower because you might get sick, you can't do this, it's all like old people say, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, in America, that's kind of called like an old wives' tale. Where it's kind of like something that has been told to you by either like grandparents or parents or authority figures in your life. That's kind of like, it has a bit of a lesson to it, or warning, I guess, in a way, if not necessarily a lesson.
It's amazing how much scary lore has come out of just trying to get kids to behave.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
We found that out.
There's the aswang. I'm not really an expert in these terms, right? But I grew up with it. So there's like aswang, there's like a human being, and then a horse. You know what I'm saying? There's a white lady. There's aswang. There's like something hanging on your ceiling. There's things like this. There's all crazy visualizations.
The manananggal
Manananggal
is the big one, right? She's like one of the most feared, maybe one of the more famous of those creatures.
Yeah, man. And it depends. There's a lot of places here in Manila where if you really want to see it, you go there and you can see it. You may or may not see it. You know what I'm saying? There's a street in here in Manila called Balete Drive. It's known to be haunted. People are gonna say, "Oh, that house is haunted. Don't go there." But if you really want to go there, you can go there and see for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I've had personal experiences myself. All right, but I really believe it's a subconscious mind. Especially a few years ago, I think maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I was in the showbiz industry here in the Philippines. We just go. We shoot every day, and we don't get rest. For example, we shoot 24 hours. We sleep for 2 hours. We shoot again, and we're changing location. So like your brain is tired, your subconscious mind is so open. So for example, when you just wake up and you see things floating around, and
right.
I have plenty of stories, and I actually have.
We would love to, if you feel open to it, we would die to hear them. Yes.
Let me tell you about this story.
Yes, we can't wait.
Two of my friends from Chicago, actually, from Columbia College. One's from Columbia, the other one's from DePaul. D and Rich. Okay. Anyways, I invited them over to the Philippines years back. And I encountered a lot of people saying, Matteo, what's the Philippines? Do you guys wear grass skirts there? Do you have elevators, all this stuff? I'm like, dude, don't worry, bro. We may be a third world country, but we have everything you guys have. Anyway, so they came over, the two of them came to the Philippines, and Rich was so enticed and so interested in scary things.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, I want to see the Aswang. I want to see this. I researched this. I was like, bro, why? I mean, if you ask for it, it will really come. If you ask for it, it will really come. You're opening the doors for them to come.
Yes, I 100% believe you. Like, make yourself available for that, and they can sense it. They know that you are looking.
Oh my gosh! And one time, Dee and I were watching a football game on TV, and Rich went up ahead. We had a couple of beers and stuff, and Rich went upstairs, and they were staying in my guest room, both of them together. And Rich was staying on the floor, in the mattress on the floor, D on the bed. And I said, bro, I have taping tomorrow, I've work tomorrow, we gotta go to bed. So I went up to my room and I was changing, and D comes running to my room and says, yo, man, I think Rich is possessed, man. He's going nuts. I was like, what? Whoa. What are you talking about? Yeah, dude, he's like shouting and stuff. I was like, come on, man, stop it, man. Wow. Come. So I run to the guest room, and he's on the floor in the mattress, and he's like in a fetal position like this, and just breathing so hard.
Wow.
And I'm like, Rich. He's like, no. And
wow.
I thought he was messing with us, right? I thought, dude, maybe this guy had too much to drink. So I was like,
right.
I was like, dude, stop it, man. If you don't stop, I'm gonna call the cops, or I'm gonna take you to the hospital now. Because I thought he was,
it's like, this is serious.
Dude,
right.
I thought he was flipping out. So he was like, and then I asked dude, I'm gonna punch this guy if he doesn't stop. And I told Rich, I'm gonna punch you if you don't stop, man. And he was like, no. And really breathing like a horse. And I started getting scared because I said he's not drunk. I was trying to connect the dots. I was like, dude, this guy has been attracting all these aswangs, man, and everything. And he's such an open soul that he's attracting it. I asked D, I was like, dude, do you pray? Do you believe in God? Do you pray? I was like, yeah, man. So I was like, dude, let's pray, bro. And so we sat on the bed, and then we're closing our eyes, and D puts his hand up and starts praying over Rich. And when he starts praying, Rich's voice changes. Like, he goes deeper. He goes, no.
Wow.
Dude, I swear, bro. I swear.
Did he remember anything when he...
Wait. We'll get there.
Okay.
And then, so I was closing my eyes, and then it was kind of funny but serious. But, I didn't know how to react because D was so into his prayer, and Rich was so into his thing. And me, I was thinking, is this a joke or is this reality? Is he really getting possessed? What's really happening? So he was praying, God, if there's something in there, please. And I had to open my eyes because what if Rich would just jump on us, right? So I was ready to just hit him in the face. So I was opening my eyes, and I looked at Rich, and he was like, no. The whole time he was praying, he was saying no already. Like, no.
Wow.
Dude, Dylan.
Wow.
And so I go up to him. When he said amen and everything, he stopped saying no. And he stopped his heavy breathing. So I went up to him, I opened his eyes, and I saw black again. Before that, maybe a few minutes before, when I opened his eyes, it was all white. So when I opened his eyes, after praying and everything, and his breathing stopped, I opened his eyes, and it was normal. And then I said, okay, D, I think we're say he's normal. So I stand up, and I pretend it's morning. I pretend it was 4 a.m. Because 4 a.m. I had to leave. So I pretend, I say, hey guys, come on, wake up call, let's go. I gotta go to work. Everybody's gonna come with me. Dude, Rich just stood up like nothing happened.
Really?
And then we really walked downstairs to my kitchen. And I was like, dude, let's go now. And I was like, oh, it's so early, man. He said, and I was like, dude, I'm just joking, dude. It's still freaking 2 a.m. We go back up. Let's go out to sleep. I said, oh, okay, dude, I'm really tired. He said, so we go back and we slept. In the morning when we woke up around 8, 9, I asked him, dude, do you remember what happened to you last night? I was like, what, dude? Dude, you're possessed, man. You're out of your mind. I was like, dude, I really don't remember, dude. He did not know anything.
That is incredible.
I cannot believe that you saw that his eyes were white.
Dude,
that is so scary.
His eyes, his voice, the tone of his voice. This guy's like a typical college dude that, hi guys, how are you? And he just changes and goes, this voice, this scary voice.
That is frightening. I would freak out. I know that you have a lot, or you have more than one dog, right?
Yeah. We have
Yes.
Three dogs.
Three dogs. So sweet. Do they ever have you noticed that? Have they ever reacted to anything? Like, were they there?
That's what they say, right? When there's dogs can feel, dogs can bark at walls, etc., etc. I mean, dude,
Right.
if you really believe in these things, maybe it might be true. I mean, if you really put your mind and soul into it, there's really something there. Okay, there's something there. But if you really have trust and confidence, for me, look, there was a part of my life where I was freaked out. Like, I couldn't sleep alone. I had to go to church. I had to talk to a priest. Dude, I was nuts. There was a time, I have another story. I was with my uncle. I rode the car, and then they took a picture of me, and there was a girl sitting beside me.
Wow.
Dude, it was a burnt girl, and my uncle freaked out. He sent back the Range Rover to the Range Rover and said, I'm not taking that. And I couldn't sleep that year. We had the U.S. tours. No, we were going to America doing concerts, etc. And one of our guests, one of my buddies, I was like, dude, I'm sorry, man, but I'm totally straight, but I think I gotta sleep with you tonight because I'm so freaked out. I can't sleep alone. So, dude, and I was talking to priests. I was praying and all these things, and it messed me up in my mind. I was so scared, and I think I also believe that there was a time I was working so much, like every day, no sleep. So I was imagining a lot. I was thinking. So my subconscious mind was so open that I was just thinking about dwarfs walking past me and things like that. You know what I'm saying?
And you always hear that these, whatever they are, they might be drawn to someone who's maybe mentally, physically exhausted. Someone like you, or someone who maybe had a recent trauma, maybe a death in the family or something they're grieving. We've found in the stories we've covered, it's almost like their food in a way. They feed off of that fear and that anger and loneliness.
Dude, one time my grandfather passed away. When my grandfather passed away, I think 10 years, maybe 8 years ago or something like that. We were in my house. I was standing up, my sister and my aunt was sitting down. And then we're just talking, my grandfather just passed, I think a week or two, etc. or something like that. And then there was like an airplane that just passed. The garden had a white light, like boom. And then I looked down, and then there was a dust with sparkling stuff, just crossed me, and I looked down, and I thought I saw it myself. So I kind of froze, and I looked up to my sister Georgia. I was like, did you see that? And I was like, yeah. And then I looked at my aunt and was like, Dad, did you see that? Yeah. And I was like, I didn't freak out yet. I was like, what did you guys see? That white dust that just passed you, Matteo. Dude, I felt like my feet was cemented to the floor, dude.
Oh, I bet.
I was like, oh, I couldn't move. And I just screamed. I was like, guys, come! And then after I moved and everything. I was freaked out. When my other uncle passed away, we were in the funeral parlor, right? And it was an interesting story because my mom's side, there's so many siblings, and then it was the last day, and then the next day would be buried and cremated. So my two aunts would walk out the room, and then there was my uncle's best friend was sitting down, and he just showed up the last day, and he stood up, and my aunts were like, hey, he's gonna come to you because you just showed up now, blah blah, just joking around, right? I was like, oh, don't say that. And dude, after a while I saw my aunt's hair just flick up, and then my aunt goes, Matteo, don't do that. I was like, aunt in Filipino was tita, okay?
Right?
Tita. Okay. So I'm like, tita, I didn't do anything, I'm so far. And then later, my other aunt, I saw 3 fingers go like that in her ears, and I was like, tita, that wasn't me. I swear to God. Dude.
Wow.
When people pass away or, things like that, there's always moths around. There's always moths. Have you guys experienced that?
I've read about this.
Yeah. When somebody passes away or some loved one passes away, there's always a black moth, in your stairwell or on the door, you know what I'm saying, for a few weeks. I mean, it's up to them. It's up to the individual to believe that or not. But my experience in my life, whenever somebody passed away, there was always a moth somewhere.
Incredible.
Dude.
Incredible.
That's amazing. And did all of those experiences, first of all, let me say thank you so much for telling those stories. Those were amazing.
It's exciting. All these stories can freak one out, right? And especially if they go through it or whatever. But dude, let me tell you something. I joined the military last year. Mm-hmm. And I'm scared to sleep alone. I'm scared of heights. I have a lot of insecurities and everything. But last year when I joined the army, I went to a 45-day ranger training, and we didn't sleep. We only had 2 hours of sleep a day for 45 days, 2 hours, 3 hours, 1 hour. I remember waking up at maybe 1 in the morning. I had to cross, right? Just by myself from point A to point B. Maybe it was just 500 meters walk just to go to this location. It was pitch black. I had to do that
Right.
almost every day. If I had my old mindset, I couldn't do that. I'd piss my pants. Like, I'd be so
Right.
scared. You know what fixed me? Like, I don't know what your religious beliefs are or whatever, but I'm a Catholic, so I really prayed and I really felt God with me all the time, and I'd always pray to God, and my faith was complete. No, my faith was complete. So I'm not scared. I'm not scared anymore. And, I feel like if you solidify yourself with faith or whatever you believe in, if you feel you're protected and all, you're protected.
Absolutely.
You're shielded.
Part of what interested me about all of this is I'm kind of like you. I'm one of those people, and part of the reason why I love it, when I see a scary movie, I still get freaked out. I'm one of those people. I love these things because they scare me. And part of what was been so great about this is it's actually, I found, solidified my faith even more just by learning about these outside things. Once you confront it, like you said, if you put your trust in your faith and everything, you can treat it as more of a learning experience.
Yeah. So you guys pray? You pray?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know, right? So
that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I believe prayers and faith with God and believing and knowing you're protected, that heals everything. Before, obviously, I was raised Catholic. I believe in God. I pray, etc. But my faith wasn't really solidified. Like, I can walk anywhere and God's with me all the time. Yeah, I prayed, etc. But there were still things entering my mind. You know what I'm saying? Through the years, when I got older, I think more wisdom, more life experience, and more learning about faith and everything else. You walk into a room and you're not afraid anymore like before. You have faith in the Lord that everything's protected. No evil spirit will enter you. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. That makes sense.
No, that makes so much sense. And I think that's so beautiful too, that you've been able to find peace, even though you've had these experiences and these things you've really actually seen, and not just kind of like an idea of something. You've really had experiences. We know that you have done so many different shows, movies, songs, albums, everything in the show business world. So we were just curious, how does it, since we love horror, how is it different working on like a horror movie versus maybe a comedy or a drama or anything like that? Like, what was your experience making some horror movies?
Horror stuff. I mean, I just shot a horror during this whole pandemic. I only said yes to one project, acting-wise. It was this series, this episode called Kakambal. Kakambal
is that
means,
the trailer on Instagram? I think we saw it. It was very cool.
Yeah, Kakambal means like a twin.
Oh, okay, like a doppelganger almost.
Yes, dude. Doppelganger, yeah. So that's big in the Philippines too, right? Like, for example, a kid says, "Oh, daddy, I saw mommy just walk in here a while ago," and dude, mommy's at work. Right. But mommy was really there. The kid really saw. They copy you. They copy your being.
Right.
This is also big here.
Right. And it's strange because it's almost like you're seeing a ghost, but of someone who hasn't passed away.
Yeah, they're copying a being. They're copying the voice.
Right.
Maybe the footsteps. Maybe the feeling.
And that's something we've encountered a lot in a lot of our episode we just recorded that's coming out this week. We did the Annabelle doll, the real story that it's based on. They talked about how if you're using a Ouija board or something, to never 100% trust whoever it says that it is. It could say that it's a nice person or even a loved one who's passed, but these spirits can manipulate you and lie in order to get their foot in the door, essentially.
My wife's here. Just say hi, love.
Oh.
Yeah, her
hi
voice. She's gonna go big.
Oh, very cool.
Say hi again, love, so your voice can be heard. Yeah. Oh yeah. So we did that. That's the only, during the pandemic, I was so hesitant in saying yes to any project because I don't want to get COVID, and obviously I just got married, and we visit my parents, and my sister just gave birth to a baby. Obviously to a baby, but hold on, my dog. This is Dakota.
Oh, Dakota?
She's beautiful.
Yeah, she's a Dachshund, like a mini Dachshund.
How many dogs do you have altogether, did you say?
3, just here, 3 in the house.
Right.
Enough. I said if we add another one, it has to be a human being.
Yeah.
It has to be a baby. So yun, I didn't want to accept any movies or anything because of the circumstance, no. So I was very careful with work. There's a whole big protocol now. It's actually good. The protocol is going to work. Everybody's cleaner, more efficient at work, and people work faster. It's better. What I did 2 game shows, like a reality show I was hosting, but I just said one yes to this horror episode. No, it was called Kakambal. a doppelganger. It was fun to do. It was fun to do because it's always, when you perform, it's always nice to do something you're not, something that you do.
Right.
Some opposite thing that you can't be at home, you know what I'm saying? So it's always fun to do something crazy. So that was fun. Actually, that was really fun doing that Kakambal episode. People would always ask me, I actually did an Aswang episode before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have like the series called Shake, Rattle, and Roll. All right.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Okay, everybody in the Philippines know this.
Yeah.
Shake, Rattle, and Roll has been going on for years, bro. Like years, like decades. I think they stopped this year, or I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, it was like years. More than 20 years, 30 years. Anyways, our episode was the Aswang episode. It was like we were in an airplane and somebody gave birth to an Aswang, to like this
Oh, my God.
creature that just ate everybody up.
Oh,
so,
my God.
going back to your question, when you shoot movies or horror movies, do you feel scared? Is it eerie? Is it, surprisingly it's not what people think. It's scary. It's not. It might be if the location is really scary, if the location is really, really haunted, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
If the whole environment feels scary. But in my experience shooting Aswang, we were shooting inside an airplane. The Kakambal, we were shooting inside like a school controlled environment, so it wasn't really scary.
Is there anything coming up that that you're excited about? Any projects, whether it's music or acting, anything on the horizon?
Right now, bro, currently, I have a show here in the Philippines. It's called Born to Be a Star. I'm the host. Do you know Masked Singer? Do you have the show in America, Masked Singer? So we did Masked Singer here, season 1 a few months ago. I think we're doing a repeat. I'm a judge there, naman. I'm like a judge. So I think in a few months again we're gonna do another run of Masked Singer. Everything's more social media now, bro. Videos on social media, and also like I said a while ago, we're planning my podcast very soon. So I'll invite you guys. We can talk again.
Absolutely, we'd love to.
Yeah, thank you. That podcast is exciting. Do you have a name for it yet?
Working title is Matt Runs.
Very nice.
But it's not literally running. It's conversations that runs with Matteo.
With Matteo, yes. I love that.
And my wife actually, we just did her concert a few weeks ago. It's called Tala. Tala means star. All right.
Okay.
We're doing a repeat May 1 and May 2.
Very nice.
We're doing this because for the Philippine audience abroad, in America and stuff. I think in America it's May 2. I'll send you the link, bro.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
It's like a film concert. Super cool.
And just really quick before we let you go, thank you so much for taking all of this time to talk to us.
Did I talk too much?
No. So we haven't really talked about it in this interview, but you two, Dylan and Matteo, go way back.
Dude, we should talk about that.
That's right. Matteo and I, we did
about
a play here in Chicago back in 2008. It's been a long time. I mean, what's some of your favorite memories of that time?
Our play, Memories of Two Mondays, it was very, very memorable to me because that was my first play in college.
Yeah.
That was the first play I auditioned for. And I was actually in college for musical theater.
Oh, that's right.
The play we did was a straight play.
Right.
So it was exciting, It was very memorable. College life in America was cool. It was really cool and cold, bro. Cold.
It was very cold. I remember that.
Cold. But I had a great time, and I really remember you because you were one of the normal ones, right? We hung out a lot.
Yeah, we sure did. We sure did, man.
We bonded. We had good times together, man. But there were a lot of different people out there. But we were the one. we had nice conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so happy for all the success you've had. Obviously, since then, you've taken over the world, my friend. And
thank you, bro.
We're so happy for you. We obviously will reach out to you again because I know we'll want to do other stuff. And Matteo, thank you. Cannot thank you enough for taking time away from your busy schedule.
No, dude, thanks to you guys. Thanks to you. Dude, I just want to say this is amazing what you're doing. We haven't seen each other since 2008. And because of this, we connected again.
I know.
The world is round and you never know in life. You might just bump into the same people you
That's
worked
right.
with 20 years ago or
Absolutely.
whatever. So it's beautiful, bro. Moments like this are great, man. Moments like this are great. And just to see you with a wife and,
Yeah.
it's amazing, man. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Life, dude, I just gotta say, life is so beautiful, bro. Every year,
Totally.
every year just gets better and better. Even though this pandemic is happening and
Right.
things are happening in the world, all this negativity, but it's always very important to be proactive and try to be the best versions of yourselves and try to grow and become
Right.
bigger every day. You know what I'm saying? And try to, I don't know why I'm talking talking about this, but
no.
social media, what you guys are doing, and the whole social media is a very, very strong, powerful platform that can influence and change a lot of people. And social media used wisely is very, very important. Right? It can destroy a lot of people, but can also create and inspire a lot. So it's nice. Let's focus on the positivity and grow with it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Matteo, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Thanks also. Thanks. I hope everybody's enjoying or enjoyed our stories.
Absolutely. All right, well, that is going to wrap it up with Aswang.
Wow. Thank you guys for listening, for joining us on this very special episode. It really means the world to have you all as listeners, and your support, whether it's a share on social media, telling a friend, just a simple like, anything like that. It really, really helps us out, and we see it and we appreciate it.
All right, and once again, thank you to Matteo for that interview, giving us his time. Citizens of the Milky Way, if you would like more, go to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast. My name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Goodbye now.